Let's make history. The area which would become the neighborhood of Sunset Park was owned by one of the few Scandinavian settlers during the 1600s, a guy named Hans Hansen. And as a sidebar, he was married to the first European child born in the quote-unquote New World, which is a woman named Sarah Rapelye. It's a street named after her. And Sunset Park was always considered part of Bay Ridge. And actually, Bay Ridge itself, Bensonhurst, and others of the surrounding neighborhoods didn't have an individual identity. They were all just called the 8th Ward. It wasn't until the mid-1900s when they began to refer to the area, unofficially even, the area surrounding the park as Sunset Park. It was desolate for the most part. What first drew people to the area of Sunset Park was the opening of Greenwood Cemetery, which became somewhat of a spectacle. Then in the late 1800s, when the actual park was built, that fueled growth. And the park was named Sunset because it was a place, prior to the park being built, it was a place where people tended to gather to watch the sun go down in the west. It gave a perfect view. It's a whopping 200 feet above sea level, earning the name Sunset. During the period when the park was built, there was a big Scandinavian population in Sunset Park, Little Norway, or some people would call it Fintown. And the park was extended by a block or two 13 years after its opening. In the 1920s, Puerto Ricans first began to move to Sunset Park because there was a demand for dock workers and people in the maritime trade. In the 1950s and 60s, Puerto Ricans really started to flood the zone, gaining a considerable presence. Because after the Scandinavians left, the Italians came in. Then after the Italians, it was the Puerto Ricans. And then in the 80s and 90s, up until now, it's more so now Mexican and Chinese, actually, with some Dominicans and other Latin American groups.